Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by Ron Ross, President and COO of Everee, workforce payment technology that make it easy to pay people instantly. Ron is a seasoned finance executive with 15 years of experience leading accounting, finance, and operations teams at fast-growing companies. Ron, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
Awesome. So let's go back in time a little bit. How did you originally come up with the idea for Everee? And am I pronouncing the name of the company correctly?
You are. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it, Everee. Thanks for asking that question. It goes back to the summer of 2017. My daughter, Eliza, had just left home to go to college. And she was working and earning enough to pay her bills, but she kept coming to me month after month in need of a short-term loan. Like her bills came due and she had several days before she got paid and just needed a short-term loan. And it happened enough where I began thinking more and more about her experience and why she was having that problem, having that issue. And it more or less was because of the mismatch in timing when her bills came due and, she had worked and earned that money. It was just locked up in the payroll cycle. And me being a CFO and having experience in payroll, I began thinking more and more about that problem and payroll as a process and the inefficiencies that existed there, and decided that was an interesting problem to solve. And so we solved it.
Well, fascinating. So tell us how you solved it.
Yeah. So when you think about payroll as a process and the software that exists out there, most of these larger payroll companies have existed for decades. And so they started back when, software was a little bit clunkier, and the process of moving money around from bank to bank was also inefficient and slow. In 2018, as I was beginning to, I was thinking through this problem that existed in payroll and the inefficiencies that were there. A new process was introduced into the banking world, which was same-day ACH, and that enabled you to move money from one bank to another bank all in the same day within hours. And that became the enabler that allowed us to launch and begin to move money around faster and get people paid more in real time, within hours. We've since added to our payment capabilities, and we can move money in an instant within seconds or minutes. And we move money for our instant pay feature through the card network rails. And recently we also launched a pay card with Visa as our partner, which allows us to move money instantly to a card. So we have various payment capabilities that allow us to move that money much, much faster. And we've innovated in our product in the software that allows administrators over payroll to do things just much, much faster.
Well, that is fascinating. And congratulations on all of the success. We'll talk about that part in a minute. And obviously having Visa as your partner is huge. Let me go back to the problem for just a minute. So are you saying that the problem that we pay people every 2 weeks, or is the problem that if we issue payroll on Friday, they're not getting it until Monday?
It's both, Seth, to be very frank with you. The problem exists in both. So when administrators think about payroll, there's a lot of complexity that exists in the software, and how you go about processing payroll and getting comfortable hitting that approve button. For example, the collection of hours for hourly workers, how that experience is facilitated in the software is very key. And so we've enabled that to be very fast and streamlined, allowing administrators to get to that approval and have confidence in that really fast. And then once they hit approve, most payroll companies will pull the money from these companies immediately and then sit on it for days before they release it to the banking system. Most of them, predominantly use the ACH network to move money. And they use the slow method of moving that money to the employees. So once they release it after a couple of days, after it clears, it takes days from that point to ultimately arrive in the employee's bank account. So in our process, we've actually made some intelligence in our software, some things that we've built that allows us to get comfortable releasing those funds immediately. So we pull the money from a customer's bank account and immediately release the payment to the workers, same day or instant to a card. So it's incredibly fast, and there's some more proprietary things that we've built that allow us to accomplish that experience. And one other important thing to note too, we've also innovated on the financial side. So not only in the software experience and in the way that we move money, but there's also, for some businesses, they don't have cash on their balance sheet, or their cash flow doesn't facilitate them having the cash available to release to workers. And so what we've done is, for some businesses, we have a credit facility that allows them to have credit supported payments. So if they don't have the cash on hand initially, we'll allow the payments to go out to the workers when they need to be paid, and it will accumulate a balance that ultimately we settle up later.
So you're almost loaning me the money to make payroll.
We are, in fact, yeah. For some of our customers where there is that need and they have a really strong business, and their cash flow works a little bit slower, so they don't get paid from their customers for a week or 2 weeks or 30 days. But it's a strong, stable business. We allow, it's called credit supported payments. So we allow them to accumulate a balance with us and still pay their workers, same day or instantly.
Well, that's fascinating, and a whole different innovation. Why do you say that the every 2 weeks or every 30 days is an outdated pay cycle?
Well, when you think about the experience I described for my daughter, it puts a significant amount of the U.S. workforce in a predicament. It's roughly 3 out of 4 U.S. workers live paycheck to paycheck. And so when they're working, but they're not getting paid more in real time for that work, they're essentially a creditor to their business. And, nearly half of the U.S. workforce has $0 saved for an emergency. And it's more than 80% have less than $500 for an emergency. So when you're in that pay cycle and something comes up where there's a bill that's due or an emergency that happens and you need to have access to your money, it just puts these workers in a real bind. And when they're not getting paid for their work more in real time, that's where, when you look at it from a macro standpoint, overdraft fees, there's about $9 billion that gets sucked out of these consumer accounts because of overdraft fees. And when you look at payday lending originated from that friction, that timing, that lack of real-time pay. And it's about $20 billion right now that gets sucked out of, the US consumers' pockets because they don't have access to their pay and they have to go somewhere in these cases where there's an emergency.
So then what's a Everee pay cycle? What if we're outdated, what's the 21st century Everee version?
In our software, you can get paid every day if you want to. So for example, for myself, I've been paid every day for about 4.5 years now. There's no way that I'm going to go back to a 2 week or half a month. To me, it's just more efficient. And what we found is that our product has a really strong fit with contingent workforces. So if you think about delivery or staffing or sales-focused businesses like pest or solar sales or mortgage companies for, with loan officers, when they sell, they want to get paid instantly, or when they make a delivery or finish a job for a staffing company, they expect, it's now become an expectation that when they finish their work, they get paid more in real time, soon after. And our software facilitates that experience for these verticals.
If an employee is getting paid every day, that assumes then that the business has the capital to pay them every single day.
Well, and some businesses don't. And that's why I mentioned earlier, we actually, if they don't have the cash right then and their cash flow cycle internally with their business doesn't facilitate that, we can offer credit supported payments, which helps enable that for them.
Yeah, I was going to say there are times like our clients have to pay us before we can pay them. And based on the day of the month, like
exactly it.
You now have quite a robust team. Can you talk a little bit about how over the last 5 years, I mean, you started like right before the pandemic. Can you talk about how you've recruited and grown a team in today's interesting labor market?
Sure. My background is I've been a CFO a few times over in early stage businesses. And during my career, I've worked around people that are exceptional on the product and engineering side and on the go-to-market side and on the finance side. So again, I've accumulated a lot of relationships over my time working in these type of businesses. And right from the start, I recruited a really strong executive team and a co-founding team. And they started with me to tackle this problem. This is all a problem that we're very passionate about solving. And so we started there, and these people that are either co-founders or that came into the business early had really strong connections, and they, of course, recruited people that they knew and that were exceptional into our business. So we started out more at the top of the business, the executive team, and then built it out from there. And we're now about 56, 57 employees, I believe is where we are at this point. And we're venture backed, so we've raised capital, and we've really been able to get aggressive about growing our business and tackling this problem.
Well, congratulations on that. That's incredible. Are you allowed to disclose like how many workers' lives you're touching or how many businesses you're serving?
Yeah, certainly. We have over 700 customers now, and a lot of those customers are very large platform businesses that have, tens of thousands of 1099 contractors or W-2 employees on their platforms. And so we have well over 200,000 workers that are using our software now.
That is absolutely incredible. Now, seeing all that gives you tons of data on what's happening and what's coming. What are some of the workplace trends that are kind of happening and coming down the pike that we need to know as business owners?
So over the past, we've been in business over 5 years now, and it's been fascinating, Seth, to watch that expectation around pay happen. When I started the business, I knew it was a problem that was, very painful for a lot of workers, and that eventually it would get to a point where it was, workers demanded real-time pay. And over the past 5 years, we've seen that shift. And I think there's been, an expectation going through the pandemic. Paper checks don't work when no one's in the office and when you're working remote. And there's been this explosion in gig work, gig staffing. Right now there's around 60 million gig workers, and that's expected to continue to grow. And that's almost 40% of the US workforce. And that's, going to continue to expand over time. And there's now this expectation in that space with gig work and delivery and staffing that, when they finish their job, they get paid immediately after. And we're seeing that expectation is starting to blend and starting to bleed into role for W-2 employees. And so over time, that expectation will set in, and workers are just going to demand to be paid more in real time. And, when you think about technology, that's exactly what technology does. It removes friction from complex processes and makes it more of a real-time experience. And you can think about that in, how you experience watching a movie or navigating on your phone to a location, or getting your news, or your mail. Everything moves to a real-time experience, and that's exactly what we're doing in payroll and payments.
How have you, you're competing against, you do something different, but technically you're in the same industry as some, Fortune 500 multi-billion-dollar corporations.
Yeah.
How has that gone?
Growing a business is challenging as it is. And it's also challenging when you have players in your space that are well established and have been around for decades. So they already have, that brand credibility. And so it is difficult kind of cracking into that space, but we've built something that's so unique that they can't facilitate, especially for these companies that it's really become an expectation and they need it, that it's allowed us to really grow and find a real strong niche in that space, in payroll and payments. And often we find that there's this pent up frustration with the way that payroll has worked. Payroll administrators, they're dealing with very clunky, archaic software. And so when you introduce something to them that's more, I would say, consumer app-like feel, where it's very intuitive, and instead of clicking through 10 different screens, 1 or 2 clicks and you're there, it's just refreshing for people, and it frees up a lot of their time where they don't have to be dealing with, an old clunky experience.
How do you protect your intellectual property?
That's challenging. You could go the more old school traditional route and look at like filing a patent or that sort of thing. And I think that doesn't really work as well as I think it initially was intended to work. And so the way that we do that, or view how we protect what we do, we've just rushed so far ahead of where the market is. And we have some very proprietary capabilities that I think are going to be really hard, really difficult to replicate. Really difficult to replicate by these older, larger companies. It's just takes a lot longer for them to move a cruise liner than, a speedboat. And then for the smaller companies that are trying to facilitate what we have built, it's gonna be really difficult for them, because we have some expertise on our executive team and what we've built. It's a real hard problem to solve, and I think it's going to be challenging for people to replicate what we've built.
So if ADP or Paychecks isn't just going to knock you off, is your business plan, is your strategy to just keep growing and growing, or do you foresee a potential acquisition from a company like that?
That's a very interesting question. So just to provide perspective too. So when you look at the larger payroll companies, they're incentivized to move slow. When you go to their public filings and look at their financial statements, you'll see in their income statement, I'm getting a little geeking out, getting technical. When you look at the income statement, there's a revenue line that says interest income. So what they do is they end up making money off of moving slow. When they pull money from customers' accounts and they sit on it for days, they're actually earning interest off of the float there. And so it's going to be a completely different shift for their business model to move away from that and move on to something that's faster. What we've actually found just recently is these larger payroll companies, they know it's very difficult to build what we have. And they know there's this growing market of contingent workforces that they just don't have a product that really fits. And so they're looking to partner with us to facilitate tackling that market and that need that they see. And so we'll probably, and we are partnering with these larger HR payroll companies to accomplish that. And I'm certain, with what we've built, there will be opportunities for these companies to look at us as an acquisition target, but we built something that's very unique, and I think we can continue to grow it, standalone and keep our independence that way.
do you have who's an ideal customer for you? I mean, obviously a platform or an employer, the bigger gives you more volume, but I mean, does this work for, hey, I'm a small business, I have 5 people working for me, 10 people working for me?
It does. Yeah. We started out with individual W-2 payroll companies, servicing them. So think of businesses that are less than 100 employees. And every business needs to pay their employees, and they need to calculate and remit the tax withholdings and do all the tax filings. We do all of that. We're a full service payroll company. So we can facilitate that type of customer experience. And like I mentioned, we've been pulled over time into these larger platform businesses. So delivery companies, staffing companies, and these are larger businesses that have, thousands and thousands of W-2s and 1099s, and we facilitate that. And more recently, we've unlocked a white label product, and we have embedded components. So like I just mentioned with, a payroll company and these larger companies that want to more grow in the contingent workforce space, we can offer a white label solution to them, or we can give them embedded components where they can facilitate and unlock that experience for those type of companies, those type of businesses.
Well, it sounds like you built something absolutely incredible and solved a large problem. It's funny, I was watching a documentary on, I can't remember if it was Apple TV or Netflix. I think it's called Dirty Money. And there was a whole hour on the payday lending industry in one particular company. And you're smiling, so I'm guessing you've seen it.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
Yes, which is funny because you don't know what you don't know, and you think your world is everyone's world. And it's just fascinating seeing that and hearing what you do and realizing, just thought this was, 2 weeks, 30 days was we've always, my entire career, I've been paid that way. And that's the way we do payroll. And we just think that's the way it's always been done. That's the way it's done. And I love that you said, hey, there's obviously you had a your daughter had an issue, and you said, I bet you there's a better way and we can create it. So congratulations on that, on all of your success, on disrupting arguably a very, very large industry. Where can our business owner, viewers, and listeners go to learn more and check out your service and see if it's right for them?
Certainly. So you can find me and our company, and again, it's Everee, and it's spelled Everee. You can find us online as well as on LinkedIn, and you can go to Twitter or Facebook, and the handle is EvereePay.
How'd the name come about? I'm surprised because Everee, I'm surprised that doesn't say like instantpay.com or something like that.
Sure. As I was thinking about this problem going way back to 2017, the phrase that kept coming in my mind was the exchange of value between the employer and the employee is broken. And in finance and accounting, often you'll see that employer and employee is shortened to ER and EE. And so it just became, and I actually go through my notes when I was thinking about what to name the business, and exchange of value, EV, between the employer ER and the employee EE became the name. And also, since you can be paid every day using our software, it sort of has a dual meaning. The exchange of value between the company and their employee, as well as, get paid every day.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we know your time is incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some with us. This has been Seth Greene with Ron Ross of Everee. Ron, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time. Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.